Hi everybody, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to learn all about the medicinal properties of lavender. So we're in my front perennial bed today where I'm going to be harvesting some lavender to make medicine with. And the lavender that I work with is Lavandula and Gustifolia, which is English lavender. I've also worked with French lavender. Those are the two medicinal species I tend to use. So as you can see, lavender has this really neat flowering spike and then a very, very long stem. Now, I mean, folks, please correct me if I'm wrong. I do not believe lavender grows in the wild in Ontario. So most folks who want to use lavender in terms of medicine will grow it themselves, or they'll visit local lavender farms so they can harvest fresh lavender. I'm lucky enough that this year I have about 4 locations on the property where I have cultivated lavender to grow. So I have enough to harvest on my own property this year. Normally I do visit lavender farms, because most of them will let you harvest bulk lavender. So when you want to make medicine in terms of using lavandula, what you want to be harvesting is the flowering spike. And then as you can see, if we can go down low enough, you can see down the spike, it's really hard to see, but there are leaves. So for each flowering spike, I'm going to take about 2 to 3 of the leaves. The actual stem itself is fairly inert. It's just going to water down your medicine. There's not a whole lot of medicinal property in the stem. So while it weighs a lot and it's really tempting to want to take it to bulk up your tincture if you don't have enough lavender, what you're really going for is this beautiful flowering spike. You want it either at the beginning or middle of its flowering period. So in Ontario, that tends to run beginning to middle of July, which is where we are now. And you know, you don't want it to be fully pollinated. That's really what we're avoiding in terms of making medicine with it. So like I said, you're going to harvest the flowering spike. You can choose to cut back the entire stem, but you're going to be discarding the stem when you're making your medicine. So we found a lavender that you have a better view of the leaves. As you can see, they are alternating across from each other. So I'll probably take, 2 full sets of leaves for every flowering spike that I would want to harvest. So what are some of the ways that we can use lavender as medicine? So the first thing I'll talk about are topical uses, because that's one of the things that's really safe, it's accessible for people, and it's easy to do. So I like to harvest lavender flowers and infuse it into witch hazel. It makes a really beautiful toner. You can also infuse it into oil and therefore use it in salves, because lavender is analgesic, so it's going to help with pain. It's anti-inflammatory, it's astringent, and it has antibacterial properties as well. It's also known as a vulnerary, and vulneraries are herbs that help to heal tissues. So it would be really great in combination with other vulnerary herbs for like a first aid type salve. It is a specific for treating burns. So in this case, you could do a wash with lavender if it's a severe burn. We never want to put oil on a burn that is blistering. So you kind of have to, you could use it in poultices. So there's lots of really great reasons why we would want to use lavender topically. So in terms of internally, I love using lavender to help support the nervous system. It's a fantastic antidepressant and anxiolytic, so it's going to help with depression and anxiety. It's also what we call a neurovasodilator, meaning it's going to help to increase blood flow to the brain. So it's going to be excellent for things like poor memory, poor concentration, brain fog, all that kind of thing. Anything that stress-related conditions, nervousness, anything along those lines, it really is supportive for. Also, as we are starting to learn about our herbs that are great for the nervous system, they are also fantastic for the digestive system. And lavender is no exception in this case. It is a carminative, so it's going to help with functional digestive issues. It's also a digestive antispasmodic, so it's going to help with the cramping that some people deal with on a regular basis, or even just that odd time when you have digestive upset. And I would be remiss to not mention it is a pretty decent little febrifuge, so it's going to help with things like fevers. And while lavender itself is not a sedative per se. It does seem to have a really beautiful synergistic relationship with other herbal sedatives. So I would use it in combination with things like valerian and chamomile and lemon balm to really help sort of gently ease someone into sleep. So as with all botanicals and herbal medicine, there's always some areas that we want to be aware of in terms of contraindications. There was one thing I forgot to mention in the last segment. While lavender itself doesn't really have a lot of strong emmenagogue properties, it seems to have this beautiful synergistic relationship with other emmenagogues, herbs that support the hormones of the female reproductive system. So it would be a nice combination with things like red raspberry leaf and some of the more female reproductive herbs that we're aware of. In terms of toxicity, lavender doesn't have any, which is nice. It's a very safe plant to work with. But because it does have that effect on the nervous system, it's an antidepressant, it's an anxiolytic, we are always cautious when combining herbs with medications that do the same thing that the herb does. I've talked about this before. I'm always going to drive this point home. So if you're on antidepressants, anxiolytic medications, any mood altering medications, you either want to really know what you're doing or work with a qualified herbalist. Another area that we are just a little bit cautious of, because it does have that synergistic relationship with female hormones, we're just cautious with it in terms of lactation. So I just finished making my lavender tincture, and I wanted to address something that is a really common question I get, because if you've never harvested lavender to make medicine before, it can be a little tedious and you have to harvest quite a bit of it just to be able to make tincture. And so a lot of folks ask, can't I just use dried lavender? And yes, you can, but there's something I want to bring to your attention. One of the things we love about lavender is that it's astringent. But when we dry plants, and I actually have a really great video on things to keep in mind when you're formulating, so I will link that. Yeah, it's over in that corner. Thank you. My husband always has to remind me. I'll link that here. But one of the things we have to keep in mind is astringency. And when a plant is dried, its astringency level goes up quite a bit. And lavender fresh is already quite astringent on its own. So I always prefer to use fresh lavender in tincture, because when I'm combining it with other herbs, it just makes my life that much easier, because dried lavender is so much more astringent that it actually reduces some of the other options of herbs that I can combine it with. So thank you so very much in joining me on this video about the beautiful medicine of lavender. Let me know what your favorite ways of using lavender are in the comments below, and also let me know if you have any questions you'd like me to answer. Until next time, this is Correne from Spirea Herbs, wishing you health and wellness.